The cap flew off my head as I ran up the driveway, diploma clutched in my sweaty palm. I'd graduated valedictorian. I couldn't wait to see their faces. The house was dark. I fumbled for my keys, heart hammering. Maybe they were planning a surprise party. Maybe they'd finally see me the way everyone else did tonight. Worthy of pride. The front door swung open to silence. Mom? Dad? Julia? My voice echoed through empty rooms. The couch was gone. Dad's recliner vanished. Family photos, all of them, stripped from the walls, leaving pale rectangles on faded paint. I stumbled toward the kitchen, my graduation gown catching on the doorframe. On the counter, next to my house keys, sat a folded piece of notebook paper and two crisp $100 bills. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Margaret, we've decided to start fresh in Portland. You're 18 now. Time to make your own way. Good luck. Mom and Dad. The paper fluttered to the floor. I stared at the empty refrigerator, its door hanging open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. They'd taken everything. The coffee maker I'd bought Dad for Father's Day. Julia's honor roll certificates from the bulletin board. Even the dish towels. Everything except my belongings, which sat in neat piles by the back door like donations for Goodwill. Through the kitchen window, I saw Mrs. Henderson watering her roses. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. Her face flushed with the kind of embarrassment that comes from knowing someone else's shame. They all knew. The whole neighborhood watched my family pack up and leave while I walked across that stage. 7 years later, they had no idea I owned the building they were begging to rent. If this story hits you in the gut like it did me, smash that like button and subscribe, because what happened next will blow your mind. But I should have seen it coming. The signs were there for 18 years, written in every family photo where I stood slightly behind Julia, every introduction where my parents said her name first, every Christmas morning where her stocking overflowed while mine held socks and a candy cane. Julia was their masterpiece. Blonde hair that caught light like spun gold, a laugh that made adults lean in closer, grades that came effortlessly. I was the rough draft they kept around for comparison. This is our daughter, Julia, Mom would say at church, her hand resting proudly on Julia's shoulder. And Margaret, she'd add, almost as an afterthought, her smile dimming just enough for me to notice. When Julia turned 16, they surprised her with a red convertible in the driveway, complete with a giant bow. When I turned 16, they handed me the keys to Dad's rusted pickup truck and said I should be grateful for the independence. The college fund was the cruelest revelation. I'd found the bank statements by accident while looking for tax documents to help with my scholarship applications. 2 accounts. Julia Williams Education Fund with $23,000 and nothing with my name on it. We always assumed you'd figure something out, Dad had said when I confronted them. You're resourceful like that. Resourceful. Their code word for unwanted. The final dinner happened 3 weeks before graduation. Julia had just gotten engaged to her college boyfriend, and Mom was practically vibrating with excitement as she set the table with the good china. Julia's engagement party will be perfect, Mom gushed, polishing wine glasses until they gleamed. Margaret, you can help serve. You're so good at staying in the background. I'd been waiting for the right moment to share my news. Full academic scholarship to State University. 4 years, everything paid for. The kind of achievement that should have made any parent burst with pride. I got the Morrison Scholarship, I said quietly, setting down my fork. Dad glanced up from his steak. That's nice, honey. Nice. Like I'd mentioned the weather. Julia squealed about centerpiece colors. Mom debated invitation fonts. My scholarship, the thing I'd worked 4 years to earn, dissolved into background noise. Some people are meant to shine, Dad said later, watching Julia model potential dresses. Others are meant to support the ones who do. I stared at the family photos lining the hallway. Julia's school plays, Julia's tennis trophies, Julia's homecoming crown. In the few pictures that included me, I was either cut off at the edge or standing so far back I looked like a stranger who'd wandered into the frame. That night, I understood something that would save me years of wondering. I wasn't their daughter. I was their audience. The first night, I sat in my car in the Walmart parking lot, engine off to save gas, counting and recounting those $200 until the bills felt soft as tissue paper. $197.43 after buying a toothbrush and granola bars. The math was simple and terrifying. I took a photo of myself that night, slumped against the driver's seat with my graduation cap on the dashboard. I looked like a ghost of the girl who'd walked across that stage 6 hours earlier. I didn't know why I took it. Maybe I needed proof that this was really happening. By day 3, I'd moved to the 24-hour laundromat on 5th Street. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps, but it was warm and the bathroom had soap. I washed my hair in the sink at 2 in the morning, watching the water swirl down the drain and wondering if this was what drowning felt like. The money disappeared faster than I'd calculated. Gas, food, a shower at the truck stop. $12 gone. $131 left. Then $98. Then $64. That's when I found Daisy's Diner. It squatted between a pawn shop and a check cashing place like a tired old woman who'd seen too much. The neon sign flickered, Op-Ed 24 hours, the E long dead. Through the grease-stained windows, I could see truckers hunched over coffee cups and a waitress with silver hair piled high as a beehive. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a cup of coffee for 99 cents, and made it last 3 hours, refilling it with the free cream until it looked like milk. "Honey, you look like you're carrying the world," the waitress said, sliding into the booth across from me. Her name tag read Daisy in faded letters. "What happened?" I stared into my coffee cup, watching the cream swirl. My family decided I wasn't worth keeping. Daisy's face softened in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not pity, understanding. "How long since you've eaten a real meal?" "I'm fine," I lied. She disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a plate piled high with scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. "On the house. And before you argue, I've got a storage room in the back that needs organizing. Pays minimum wage plus meals. Interested?" I wanted to cry. Instead, I nodded. The storage room was barely bigger than a closet, crammed with boxes of napkins and industrial-sized ketchup bottles. But it had a lock, 4 walls, and Daisy didn't ask questions when I showed up with my backpack and a pillow from my car. My first paycheck was $63.27. I took a photo of it, just like I had that first night in the parking lot. Evidence of forward motion, even if it felt like crawling. I ate leftover pie for breakfast, swept floors until my back ached, and learned that kindness from strangers could feel more like family than 18 years of blood relations. But it was the night I found my parents' old Christmas card in my backpack that everything changed. The 4 of them, Mom, Dad, Julia, and Julia's fiancé, smiling in matching red sweaters. I wasn't cropped out this time. I simply didn't exist. I made a promise to myself that night that would change everything. But first, I had to survive the next 6 months. Daisy became the teacher I never knew I needed. Within a month, she had me balancing the diner's books, negotiating with suppliers, and scheduling staff. "You've got a head for numbers," she said, watching me reorganize her filing system. "And something else. You see solutions where other people see problems." She was right. When the coffee machine broke, I found a used one for half the price of repairs. When the lunch rush overwhelmed our single cook, I created a prep schedule that cut wait times in half. Every small victory felt like proof that I was more than the leftover daughter my parents had discarded. But Daisy's Diner could only teach me so much. I needed more. I started working 3 jobs. Mornings at the diner, afternoons cleaning offices, nights stocking shelves at the grocery store. Every dollar went into mason jars hidden in my storage room. Rent jar, food jar, future jar. The future jar grew the slowest, but it grew. That's when I met Williams. He wasn't related to my parents, just shared their last name. A coincidence that felt like the universe's cruel joke until I realized it was actually a gift. Williams owned half the commercial buildings on Main Street, including the crumbling brick structure next to Daisy's Diner. "That eyesore's been empty for 2 years," he said one morning, stirring sugar into his coffee. Previous owner let it rot from the inside out. I'd walked past that building every day for 8 months. Broken windows, peeling paint, weeds growing through the sidewalk cracks. Most people saw a lost cause. I saw potential. What would it take to buy something like that? I asked. William studied me over his coffee cup. You serious, kid? Dead serious. He laughed, but not mockingly. Most people your age are worried about Instagram followers. You're asking about real estate investment. I like that. He pulled out a business card. Come by my office Saturday. Let's talk. That Saturday changed everything. Williams didn't just teach me about property investment. He taught me about seeing value where others saw waste. You've got instincts, kid, he said, spreading property listings across his desk. Most people see problems. You see potential. I learned early that no one's coming to save you, I replied. So you better learn to save yourself. The building next to Daisy's was listed at $45,000. I had $8,000 saved. Williams helped me structure a deal. $5,000 down. Owner financing for the rest, with the understanding that I'd renovate it myself. I spent every free hour on YouTube, learning plumbing, electrical work, drywall repair. My hands, soft from 18 years of suburban comfort, grew calloused and strong. I ripped out moldy carpet, replaced broken windows, painted walls until my shoulders screamed. Daisy would bring me sandwiches while I worked, shaking her head at the transformation. You're like a phoenix, she said, watching me install new light fixtures, rising from ashes that weren't even your own. The renovation took 6 months. I documented everything. Before photos of water damage and decay, after photos of gleaming hardwood floors and fresh paint. When I finally hung the for rent sign, 3 people called within a week. My first tenant was a young couple opening a bakery. They paid $800 a month, more than I'd ever seen in one place. I took a photo of that first rent check. Just like I had with my $63 paycheck from Daisy's, I registered Margaret's Holdings LLC that same week. The business license felt heavier than my high school diploma. By year 2, I owned 3 properties. By year 5, 12. Each building taught me something new about renovation, about people, about the kind of success that comes from your own hands instead of someone else's approval. By year 7, I was about to discover my parents needed something from me. Drop a comment if you've ever had to build yourself from nothing. Your story matters too. The newspaper article appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. Local woman builds empire from nothing. The headline read, with a photo of me standing in front of my latest renovation. A Victorian duplex I'd transformed from condemned property to luxury apartments. The reporter had done her homework. She mentioned my age, my portfolio of 15 properties, my reputation for revitalizing neglected buildings. What she didn't mention was the family who'd abandoned me, and I was grateful for that omission. Daisy framed the article and hung it behind the diner counter. Look at my girl, she'd tell customers, beaming with the kind of pride I'd never seen from my actual parents. I thought the article would fade into yesterday's news. I was wrong. The first message came through Facebook 3 days later. Julia's profile picture showed her in a white sundress, arms wrapped around a man I didn't recognize. Her message was casual, almost breezy. Maggie, saw your article. So proud of you. We should catch up soon. XOXO. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before deleting it without responding. The second message arrived a week later, less casual. Hey, I know you're busy, but I'd really love to reconnect. It's been too long. Then, Maggie, please respond. I miss my sister. Sister. The word felt foreign, like she was speaking a language I'd forgotten. The messages escalated over the next month. The breezy tone disappeared, replaced by something that looked suspiciously like desperation. Maggie, we need to talk. Family emergency. Mom and Dad are in trouble. I screenshot every message, filing them away like evidence. The final message came with attachments, scanned documents that made my stomach drop. Foreclosure notice, eviction papers, bank statements showing negative balances. They're going to lose everything, Julia wrote. The house in Portland, Dad's business, all of it. I know we haven't talked in years, but you're the only one who might be able to help. Please call me. I printed the foreclosure notice and stared at it for a long time. My parents, who'd left me with $200 and a note, were broke. The people who'd decided I wasn't worth keeping now needed something from the daughter they'd thrown away. The irony was so perfect, it almost felt scripted. I chose Meridian, the kind of restaurant where entrees cost more than my first week's groceries. Julia had suggested meeting for coffee. I upgraded the venue. If we were going to have this conversation, it would be on my terms. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing a tailored navy blazer and the kind of confidence that comes from owning the building across the street. The hostess led me to a corner table with a view of the parking lot. I wanted to see them arrive. Julia came first, scanning the restaurant with nervous energy. She'd gained weight, lost the effortless glow that used to make adults stop mid-sentence to compliment her beauty. Behind her, my parents moved like people carrying invisible burdens. Mom's hair was shorter, streaked with gray she hadn't bothered to cover. Dad's shoulders curved inward, his expensive suit hanging loose on a frame that had shrunk since I'd last seen him. They looked older than 7 years should have made them. They didn't recognize me at first. I watched them search the restaurant, their eyes sliding past my table twice before Julia pointed in my direction. Margaret? Mom's voice cracked on my name. Is that really you? You look so different. 7 years of not being your daughter will do that, I replied, gesturing for them to sit. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Dad cleared his throat. The same nervous habit I remembered from childhood arguments he was too cowardly to join. You look successful, he said finally. I am. Julia fidgeted with her wedding ring. We saw your article. We're so proud. Stop. The word came out sharper than I'd intended. We're not doing that. You didn't come here to celebrate my success. You came because you need something. Mom's composure cracked. We're in trouble, Margaret. Real trouble. The business failed, we're facing foreclosure, and we heard you might consider our rental application. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to their application, submitted through my property management company. Paul and Linda Williams, seeking 2-bedroom apartment, monthly income insufficient for standard approval, requesting consideration based on family connection to landlord. Dad's face went white. You're our landlord? I'm a lot of things you never bothered to notice. Margaret, please. Mom leaned forward, her voice taking on the pleading tone I'd never heard her use with Julia. We made mistakes. Mistakes? I set my phone down carefully. You packed up and moved while I was at graduation. You left me a note like I was a house sitter whose services were no longer needed. We thought you'd be fine, Dad mumbled. You were always so independent. Independent, your code word for unwanted. I smiled, but it felt like glass. The same way you considered my graduation night? Julia finally spoke. We were young, we didn't know. You were 22, Julia. Old enough to speak up. Old enough to say something when your parents abandoned your sister. The restaurant hummed around us, other families sharing meals and laughter while ours sat in the wreckage of 7 years of silence. What do you want from us? Mom whispered. I looked at each of them, these strangers who shared my DNA but had never shared my life. Nothing, I said. I stopped wanting anything from you the night I slept in my car. I pulled out the lease agreement I'd prepared that morning. I'll approve your application. Standard terms, market rate, no family discounts. First month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit due at signing. Dad's hands shook as he reached for the papers. Thank you, Margaret. It means you're my tenants. Nothing more. I stood, leaving money on the table for my untouched coffee. The apartment is clean, safe, and fairly priced. You'll be good tenants because you can't afford not to be. Walking toward the exit, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd gotten revenge, I hadn't. I'd simply chosen boundaries over bitterness, business over blood. Outside, I called Daisy. How'd it go? She asked, exactly how it needed to. That evening, William stopped by the diner. Heard you had an interesting day, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. The most interesting, I replied. Daisy brought us coffee and sat down, completing our unlikely family of 3. We didn't share DNA, but we'd built something stronger. Loyalty earned through kindness, respect built through mutual support. If you've ever had to choose yourself over toxic family, you're not alone. Hit subscribe and share your story in the comments. We're building a community of survivors here.